What is going on? It's GZTV back with another video, and today we will be going through the NFL matchups for the week, starting with the match that just concluded the Bears and the Steelers. Bears were one kick away from winning, but they were pretty much 10 yards away from the target kick that they wanted. So, I mean, Justin Fields threw a pass, he got batted down. Who knows what would have happened if he would have completed it? But pretty good game, pretty good effort from the Bears. I mean, the Steelers aren't a slouch team. I mean, they still got good guys despite not having Juju. I mean, Ben Roethlisberger 205 for 2 touchdowns, solid game there. Justin Fields 291 for a touchdown and a pick, not too bad either. David Montgomery is back. He had 63 yards rushing, and Najee Harris had 62 with a touchdown. Cole Kmet had a good game receiving-wise, 6 receptions for 87 yards, and Deontay Johnson, who's been the leading receiver for the Steelers since the Juju injury, had 5 receptions for 56 yards. Moving on to Thursday night, the Jets and Colts game. Jonathan Taylor and the run game helped the Colts find an easy path past the Jets, although it was a really good game offensively for both sides of the field. Another random Jets quarterback came in and killed it. Josh Johnson, 317 yards, 3 touchdowns, and interception. So really good there. Carson Wentz had 272 and 3 touchdowns. Jonathan Taylor continuing to play like a beast. 19 carries, 172 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Receiving wise, Moore had 84 yards and 2 touchdowns, and Michael Pittman had 5 receptions, 64 yards, and a touchdown. Pretty solid games for both teams, honestly. Going to Sunday, we're going to start with the Packers and the Chiefs. Chiefs edge the Rodgers-less Packers by 6, and honestly a good game defensively for both teams. Jordan Love, in his first start of his career, had 190 for a touchdown and interception, and Mahomes only had 166 for a touchdown, so wouldn't say a bad performance for Jordan Love in his first game. Aaron Jones had 53 yards rushing, and Damian Williams had 70 yards rushing. Receiving-wise, Randall Cobb had 50 yards through 3 catches, and Travis Kelce had 68 yards and a touchdown. Not really the best game offensively for either side, but good defense, so yeah. Moving on to the next game, we have the Browns and the Bengals. Browns close a chaotic week by dumping Burrow and the Bengals, beating them by 25 points, which was a big surprise, honestly, a really big upset. There were a lot of upsets this week. Honestly, the Packers almost pulled off an upset without Rodgers. That would have been awesome. But anyways, Baker Mayfield had 218 yards for 2 touchdowns, and Joe Burrow, honestly, like one of the first letdowns of the year for him, 282, but with 2 picks, so obviously they couldn't really get it going on offense. Passing wise, but Nick Chubb had 137 yards for 2 touchdowns. Running, he had like a 70-yard running touchdown, rushing touchdown. And I think Denzel Ward also had a pick 6 for the Browns, which there were a lot of return touchdowns, like fumble recovery touchdowns, pick 6s, kickoff return, stuff like that. Joe Mixon had 64 yards for 2 touchdowns. Receiving wise, Peoples-Jones had 86 yards and a touchdown. He's been playing really good lately. He only had 2 catches, and he had those numbers. And T. Higgins for the Bengals had 6 receptions for 78 yards. So once in a while, Jamar Chase isn't the leading receiver for the Bengals. Another upset that happened was next Broncos and Cowboys. Broncos beat the Cowboys by 14 as a 6-game Dallas win streak ends. They started the season off 0-2 or 0-1, and they won their last 6 and then lost to this one. Dak had 232 for 2 touchdowns and a pick. Ezekiel Elliott, honestly, not a very good game for him. 10 carries, 51 yards. I mean, yards per carry wise, that's good, but I don't know. He usually does better. Teddy Bridgewater had 249 for a touchdown, and Williams for Denver had 111 yards. Patrick, receiving wise, had 4 receptions for 85 yards and a touchdown, and Dalton Schultz had 4 receptions for 54. Good game for the Broncos. They are back above 500. After sort of struggling, they were one of the 3-0 teams to start the year, but they started to struggle, and now they're back up. Next, we have the Texans and Dolphins. The 2 teams combined for 9 turnovers. Dolphins beat the Texans by 8 points. There were 5 total interceptions and 4 fumbles. Todd Taylor had 240 for 3 interceptions. Honestly, like an awful game all around. Jacoby Brissett had 244 yards for a touchdown, but 2 picks. Running wise, I mean, Gaskin had 34 yards for a touchdown, and Phil Lindsay had 28 yards. Nothing major there. Receiving wise, Jalen Waddle had 8 receptions for 83, so that was a bright spot in Miami's game. And Brandon Cooks had 6 receptions for 56 yards. Moving on to the next game, we had Falcons and Saints, another upset. Matt Ryan passes for 343 yards and 2 touchdowns as Falcons beat the Saints by 2. And Trevor Siemian had a really good game as well, 249 yards for 2 touchdowns. He has a bright future as a starter for the Saints with the whole Jameis Winston out for the year situation. Not really good running for Atlanta, but for New Orleans, Alvin Kamara had 50 yards for a touchdown, and he also had 54 yards receiving. Cordero Patterson, going back to his old receiver days, had 6 receptions for 126 yards. He is usually the running back, but I think they really needed him to play receiver with Calvin Ridley being out for personal reasons. Next we have the Raiders and Giants, another upset. McKinney has 2 picks. Giants beat the Raiders by 7. Derek Carr had 296 for a touchdown and 2 picks, which isn't the best, but it's not an awful game. Daniel Jones only had 110 for a touchdown. Booker had 99 yards rushing, and Josh Jacobs had 76 yards rushing. Receiving wise, Darren Waller had 92 yards receiving, and Evan Ingram had 3 receptions for 38 yards and a touchdown. I think Evan Ingram just got back in action a couple weeks ago, maybe, so that's a decent game for him. Patriots and Panthers. The Patriots shut down Sam Darnold and the Panthers, and they cruised to an 18-point victory. I think J.C. Jackson had a pick 6. That was another big pick 6 in the league. Mac Jones, he only had 139 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. Sam Darnold had 172 touchdowns and 3 interceptions, so honestly, a bad game, but New England was able to pull it out and get above 500. Stevenson had 62 yards carrying, and Christian McCaffrey in his game back, he had 52. But he also had 54 receiving yards, so he kind of had an Alvin Kamara type of performance. And Stevenson was also the leading receiver, 2 receptions for 44 yards, so there was one skill player doing everything for each offense. Yet another upset here, Bills and Jaguars. Jags get the better Josh Allen. Jaguars have a linebacker named Josh Allen, and obviously the Bills have their quarterback Josh Allen, but the Jags got the better Josh Allen this time around, and they beat the Bills by a field goal. It was only 9-6. I think that's like the lowest scoring game of the year. Josh Allen had 264 yards and 2 interceptions, which honestly is the first time in a while there's been a Josh Allen game without a touchdown. Trevor Lawrence only had 118 yards. But, the defense was the main part. Josh Allen had 5 rushes for 50 yards, and Carlos Hyde had 67 yards rushing. Stephon Diggs had 6 receptions for 85 yards, and Arnold had 60 yards receiving and 4 catches. I think Josh Allen got a pick 6 or a pick. He sacked him, and then he recovered a fumble from Josh Allen. All that happened to Josh Allen. Next was the Vikings and the Ravens. I actually watched this game and thought the Vikings were going to have a chance, but they lost, unfortunately. Justin Tucker's overtime kick gives the Ravens a 3-point win over the Vikings. Passing-wise, Lamar had 266 for 3 touchdowns and 2 picks, and Kirk Cousins had 187 for 2 touchdowns. Dalvin Cook had 17 carries for 110 yards, and Lamar Jackson had 21 carries for 120 yards. So not only did he outpass Kirk Cousins, he also outran Dalvin Cook, one of the best running backs in the league. Receiving-wise, Justin Jefferson had 3 catches for 69 yards and a touchdown, and Marquise Hollywood-Brown, 9 receptions for 116 yards. I think I saw him rocking Lamar Jackson's Louisville jersey to the game. So the chemistry was definitely there for today. Really good duo, a small, fast wide receiver, and an elusive quarterback in Lamar Jackson. They got a pretty good future ahead of them. Next, we had Chargers and Eagles. Justin Herbert has 3 touchdowns. The Chargers beat the Eagles by a field goal. Eagles put up a really good effort. I mean, they were a 3-5 team before this. I think the Chargers had a losing streak or something, and they finally snapped it. But anyways, Justin Herbert, 256 yards and 2 touchdowns, with a rushing touchdown, obviously. And Jalen Hurts only having 162 yards for a touchdown, so not much from him there. Running-wise, Austin Eckler had 59 yards rushing, and Jordan Howard had 71 yards and a touchdown. Receiving-wise, the rookie out of Alabama, Devonta Smith, had 5 receptions for 116 yards and a touchdown, and Keenan Allen had 12 receptions for 104 yards. So, really good game. Another young duo in Jalen Hurts and Devonta Smith that will only get better. Devonta Smith had, 116 of the 162 passing yards to himself. Next, we have the Cardinals and Niners. James Conner leads the shorthanded Cardinals past the Niners as they win by 14. Colt McCoy was starting for Kyler Murray, and he had 249 for a touchdown. And Jimmy Garoppolo had 326 for 2 touchdowns and an interception. So good game, pretty good games for each quarterback. James Conner, really good game, 96 yards for 2 touchdowns. And Elijah Mitchell, honestly, a down game. Even for a rookie like him, he's been having a consistent year. He just had 8 carries for 36 yards. Receiving-wise, George Kittle is back, and he had 6 receptions, 101 yards, and a touchdown. And Christian Kirk had 6 receptions for 91 yards. Last game I'm going to talk about is the Titans and the Rams. I could see this game as being an upset too. I mean, I didn't think the Titans were going to win this. Defense carries the Titans past the Rams in a 12-point victory for the 5th straight win. So, I mean, maybe it's not so much an upset. The Titans are on a streak even without Derrick Henry. Tannehill only had 143 yards, and a touchdown and an interception. Stafford, 294 yards, a touchdown, and 2 interceptions. I think he had those 2 interceptions within back-to-back drives of each other, so that's kind of unfortunate. Foreman had 5 carries for 29 yards in Derrick Henry's place, but I mean, as long as their defense plays at a top level, they're not going to have a problem with a bad running back. Darnell Henderson had 55 yards rushing. Receiving-wise, A.J. Brown had 42, and Robert Woods had 98. So yeah, that is going